deleted a scene you loved because someone on the internet told you to kill your darlings. And your book got worse, not better. Worse. Flatter. Colder, more streamlined, but less alive. And you cannot figure out why because you followed the advice. You did the thing everyone said to do. I have edited hundreds of manuscripts, and I can tell you the exact reason. You were handed a rule without the reason behind it. And that rule without a reason just eliminated one of the best parts out of your book. So here is what we are doing. 4 pieces of advice you've encountered repeatedly in your craft journey as a writer. For each one, I'm going to tell you what it originally meant, how it got flattened into a rule, and what the real lesson is, and how you should actually be applying them to your story. Here is why this matters more than most craft advice. These 4 rules are subtractive. Every single one of them tells you to remove something, which means when you apply them incorrectly, you are not adding a flaw to your book. You might be deleting something that was working. That damage is much harder to see and even harder to undo. By the end of this video, you'll be able to look at any sentence in your manuscript and know whether it's working or not. So, let's get into it. Let's start with the one that does the most damage. Kill your darlings. It gets repeated like gospel, and on the surface, it sounds brutal and wise, which is exactly the kind of advice writers love because it feels like proof you're serious. Here's what nobody tells you when they say it. It was never about cutting the things you love. Faulkner's original point was about cutting things that serve you instead of the story. Those are not the same thing, and the difference is everything. But because the phrase says darlings, writers hear, if I love it, it's suspect. So they start cutting scenes they love that are load-bearing. They delete emotional moments because they feel self-indulgent. They strip the personality out of their prose because it feels like showing off. And the book gets flatter, colder, less alive. And they have no idea why because they did the hard thing everyone told them to do. So here's the real rule. Cut what serves you, keep what serves the story. And here's how you actually tell the difference. Before you delete anything, ask one question. If I cut this, what breaks? Say you have a quiet scene where your protagonist repairs a fence with her father. Barely any plot, and you love it. And you're suspicious of that because you love it. Cut it and ask what breaks. If the answer is nothing, the story moves on fine, then it was a darling. Cut it. But if the answer is the reader no longer believes she'd protect him in chapter 30, that scene's not a darling. That scene is load-bearing, and you do not tear down load-bearing walls. Number 2, show don't tell. The holiest rule in all of writing. The problem is not the advice. The problem is that it's taught as an absolute, and absolutes in creative work can be so harmful. Here's what over-applying this rule looks like. A character walks into a room. Instead of she was nervous, the author writes hands trembling, throat dry, eyes scanning the exits, heart hammering against her ribs. 4 sentences describing a fairly simple feeling. Now, multiply that across every emotional beat in a 90,000 word novel. You have just added 15,000 words your reader did not ask for and didn't need. And you've slowed your story to a crawl at the exact moments it should be accelerating. Telling is not lazy. Telling is efficient. It's a tool and it has a job. Watch what happens across 3 registers. The full show. Her hands went numb. The room tilted. She heard her own pulse before she heard the question. That's your climax, your worst moment. The scene the whole book was built toward. Spend the words. The brief show. Her mouth went dry. 4 words. You get the body, you get the feeling, and you're moving. This is your default for most of a thriller. The tell. She was terrified, and you're already on to the next action or event. This is connective tissue. Getting from one moment to the next when momentum is your priority. Your reader does not need a full physiological workup to cross a room. So, the real rule? Show the moments that matter most. Show briefly when you need to keep things moving, and tell when you need to move on to the next thing now. Show don't tell is not an across-the-board rule. It's a sliding scale. Knowing where to land on it is most of the job. Number 3, cut every adverb. Stephen King said the road to hell is paved with adverbs, and a generation of writers took that to mean delete every ly word in the manuscript. But Stephen King uses adverbs constantly. Go open any of his books right now and find me a chapter without one. I'll wait. It was never the entire rule. His actual point was narrower and much more useful. An adverb becomes a problem when it's propping up a weak verb. She ran quickly is weak. The adverb is doing the verb's job. She sprinted. Now the verb carries it. That's the whole lesson, and It's a good one. But that is not the same as all adverbs are bad. He said quietly in a tense scene. There is no single verb that means said but quietly. So you need the adverb and the line lands harder because of it. He whispered is an entirely different action. He murmured is another different action. Adverbs work when they are doing work no verb can do alone. She smiled sadly. That's not necessarily weak writing. Sometimes that is precision. A sad smile is a specific human event and there is no specific word for it. So the real test is not, is there an ly word here? It's, is this adverb propping up a lazy verb or is it adding information the verb cannot carry? If the answer is that it's a prop up, cut it. If the answer is that it's adding useful information or context, leave it alone. Blanket deleting adverbs does not make your writing stronger. It makes it blander. Those are very different outcomes and only one of them is a compliment. Number 4. Never use passive voice. This one is different from the adverb rule, and I want to be precise about why. Nobody thinks passive voice is weak. They think it's incorrect, like a grammatical error, like there's a right way and they've been doing it the wrong way. It isn't an error, it's a choice. Passive voice does something active voice cannot do. It shifts emphasis and it creates distance between a character and an action, which is sometimes precisely what you want. Let's take a look at these two sentences. She left the door open. She did it. She's responsible. We are looking at her. The door was left open. Now we are looking at the door. Somebody did this and we don't know who, and the not knowing is the point. That is a horror sentence. It's a mystery sentence. It's a sentence where the character is avoiding responsibility or where the narrator is withholding something. Those are two completely different sentences with two completely different jobs. Neither is automatically correct. Neither is automatically incorrect. Context decides that. Running find and replace on passive voice and eliminating it wholesale is surface level editing. It makes a manuscript feel processed, scrubbed, like it went through a machine instead of a mind. And readers feel that even when they can't name it. Your voice lives in your intentional choices, which means every choice you outsource to a rule is a place where your skill in the craft should be. Here's the thing I need you to see now that you've got all 4 rules through the right lens. Every one of these started as something real. Faulkner had a point. King had a point. Whoever first said show don't tell had a point. They were all describing a specific failure they kept seeing, and they described it well enough that the phrase stuck. What happened is that the phrases have now outlived the explanation. They got repeated by people who'd only heard the phrase to people who would only hear the phrase until what was left was a rule with the reasoning stripped from it. That's why they can be dangerous. Not because they're wrong, but because they lack context, and rules without context in creative work doesn't make you careful. They make you obedient. The writers who improve the fastest are not the ones who follow the most rules. They're the ones who understand why a rule exists so that they know precisely when it doesn't apply. So, 3 things. 1. Before you cut anything, ask what breaks if you do. If nothing breaks, it was a darling. If something breaks, it was structure. 2. Show, brief show, and tell are 3 settings on a dial, not a right answer and 2 wrong ones. Match the setting to the stakes of the scene or the moment. 3. Adverbs and passive voice are not inherent errors. Ask what the word or phrase is doing and if it's doing what you intended. If it's carrying meaning nothing else can carry, leave it alone. And underneath all 3, stop editing by blanket rules. Start editing by effect. The question is never, is this allowed? The question is, what does this do to my reader? And one more thing before you go. Which piece of writing advice has messed with your head the most? Which one have you actually been obeying uneasily without being able to say why? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. See you next week.